The water closed over me faster than I'd expected. Cold. Thick, dragging me down. The wheelchair twisted above me, then sank like it had been waiting for this moment. My feet kicked out of habit. My hands worked on memory. It had been years since I swam, decades. Maybe, but my body hadn't forgotten how to fight for air. Above the surface, I heard his voice. "She's gone," Carter said, laughing. "We get the 5 million now." He didn't sound angry, just pleased, like he'd finally solved a puzzle that had been bothering him. I didn't scream. I didn't call his name. I just swam. The far side of the lake was wild, no docks, no tourists, just tall grass and reeds and muddy banks that didn't care who lived or died. I crawled through it, knees catching on stones, fingers pulling me up by wet roots. My breath came hard. My dress was heavy, but I was still here. I sat in the grass and waited. For footsteps, for voices, for him to come back and realize I wasn't finished yet. Nothing. They didn't come looking. By the time the sun slid behind the hills, my skin had dried in patches. My shoes were lost somewhere in the lake. I didn't care. I walked barefoot down a dirt path, out past the closed boat rental shed, and toward the county road. It was nearly midnight when I reached the edge of town. No one noticed the soaked old woman moving past the shuttered pharmacy and the dark post office. A dog barked once. A passing car slowed, then kept going. I found a bench outside the gas station and sat there in silence, dripping lake water into the concrete. My knees ached. My fingers were scratched raw. I didn't wipe the blood. When the store lights flickered on at 5, I stood up. The clerk was a teenager with sleepy eyes. He flinched a little when I asked for the phone, but handed it over without a word. I dialed a number I hadn't used in years. Eleanor Byers answered on the second ring. The morning came sharper than I expected. A wind cut through my sleeves as I stood at the corner across from the house, my house watching through the thin line of hedges. Carter's SUV was parked exactly where I used to keep my sedan. Nose first beside the cracked stepping stones I laid myself 30 years ago. The front door was open wide. Music played low. I could smell sausage and toast drifting out. Inside, they were laughing. Simone passed around a tray of orange juice in crystal glasses. Carter leaned on the kitchen counter like he owned the place. Maybe now he thought he did. From where I stood, I could see the delicate china cups lined along the shelf. My husband's hands had unpacked those when we moved in. He used to wash them one by one, like they were sacred. Now Simone was using them to serve strangers on a Sunday morning. The mailbox still had my name on it. The brass letters read Langley in the same font I chose when we first bought the place, but everything else had changed. 6 months ago, they said they just needed a place to stay, just until we sort out the loan paperwork. Mom, Carter had told me, eyes wide like the boy I remembered. I wanted to believe that boy was still in there. They didn't force me out. They didn't have to. They shifted things, little by little. A drawer emptied. My chair moved to the garage. Mail started going missing. A new bank account appeared, just to simplify things, Carter said. It wasn't simplification. It was erasure. I took one last look through the window. Simone had her hand on his shoulder, laughing at something he said. She looked happy. He looked rich. I turned away before either of them saw me. There would be no confrontations. Not yet. I didn't need apologies. I needed documents, records, proof. The wind picked up behind me as I walked back toward town. There was one place I knew would still have what I needed if the footage hadn't already been erased. The Lakeside Management office was nearly empty when I pushed open the door. A single ceiling fan hummed overhead, moving the warm air in slow circles. Behind the counter sat a young woman with a braid down her back, tapping at a keyboard with chipped red nails. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. "Morning," she said. "Can I help you?" "My phone," I answered. "I think I lost it near Dock 3 yesterday evening. I'm hoping someone turned it in. Her expression softened. If someone found it, they'd have brought it here. But we can check the feed if you want. I nodded, keeping my hands folded so she couldn't see the scratches along my knuckles. She led me to a small monitor behind the counter. Clicking through files that seemed endless, the timestamp crawled closer to the hour I was pushed into the lake. My heart didn't race. It simply tightened. The way an old rope pulls before snapping. There, I said quietly. She paused the scroll. On screen. The dock stretched out like a long finger. The lake dark beneath it. My wheelchair sat at the edge. Carter stood behind it. Simone stood just far enough away to pretend she wasn't part of it. The girl leaned closer. Is that? Can you zoom? She did, and there it was. Carter's hands on the handles. Simone's short nod. The shove. The empty space where my body had been a second earlier. No struggle. No hesitation. The girl's face went pale. Do you need me to call someone? She whispered. Not yet. I said, I just need a copy. She hesitated. Company policy probably forbade it, but something in the room shifted, maybe the way I kept my voice steady. Or maybe the fear in her eyes as she watched the screen again. She unplugged a flash drive from her drawer, saved the file, and handed it to me without another word. I tucked it into my coat, smoothing the fabric over it. Before leaving, I placed a folded 20 on the counter. She didn't touch it until I'd reached the door. Outside, the lake glimmered through the trees, steady and indifferent, waiting for whatever came next. The tires of my old pickup hummed low as I pulled up outside Eleanor's office on Walnut Street. Nothing much had changed, same brass plaque by the door. Same curtains in the window, yellowed now with time. I hadn't been here since Lawrence passed. We never needed lawyers after him. At least, I thought we didn't. Inside, she looked older, but not frail. Eleanor Byers had always carried herself like someone who didn't waste words. She looked up from her desk as I stepped in, eyes narrowing just a little. Marvel, she said softly. You look like hell. Close enough, I replied, and held out the flash drive. She said nothing more, just took it, plugged it in, and watched the video. Once, then again. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. When it ended the second time, she stood, walked to the door, and turned the lock. You're not safe, she said, but you're also not powerless. We sat down with a manila folder between us, my husband's old estate plan. His name was still on the header, typed in clean, careful font. I remembered the day we signed it. Rain had been falling outside. Lawrence had joked that our fortune was small, but we'd make sure it wasn't wasted. Eleanor flipped through the pages until she found the insurance policies. He tried to change the beneficiary 6 weeks ago, she said, filed online. Had some half-baked electronic signature. Denied. She smiled just barely. So, the money still belongs to you. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. But that's only one piece, she continued. The accounts, the house, the pension, the property lines, that's messier, and I'm guessing you didn't authorize any changes. Not a single one. She started a fresh notepad. Then we're not fighting memory. We're fighting forgery. I nodded. The word felt heavy, but true. Eleanor pushed her glasses up and reached for the scanner. Let's get to work. And just like that, I remembered what it felt like to be on solid ground again, even if the earth beneath me still shifted. The folders came in stacks paper pulled from printers, downloaded from bank portals, mailed under the pretense of routine. Eleanor spread them across her conference table, sorting each one into a quiet row of proof. There, she said, tapping a page with her pen. Transfer authorization. Pension withdrawal. Joint account access. My name was on all of them. My signature, too. Or something that pretended to be. It's not even close. I murmured, picking up one sheet. The loops were wrong. The pressure was off. My hand had a rhythm, even in age. This looked like someone guessing under pressure. He used your old passwords to access your bank, Eleanor said. That's how he got the routing numbers. But to move funds, he needed consent. I looked down at the papers. Apparently, I'd consented to nearly everything selling part of the house, listing Carter as co-owner on the lake cabin, even transferring 3 of my husband's framed canvases into family trust inventory. They listed the paintings as collateral. Eleanor added, "Your own walls are their loan guarantee." I didn't speak. There wasn't much to say. Betrayal like that didn't make a sound when it broke. It just left the room colder. Then she showed me the forms that mattered most. Durable Power of Attorney 2 versions. Both with my name. Neither one familiar. Witnesses I'd never met. Signatures in ink I'd never used. But see this. Eleanor pointed. Same last name as one of Carter's friends, and this one. No notary stamp. Invalid in this state. Does that matter? It does now. She gathered the sheets, clipped them together, and pulled out a legal freeze form. We signed it on the spot, me with my real signature. Slow, but solid. By noon, Eleanor had contacted 3 banks, the county recorder's office and the state pension board. Everything's paused, she said. They can't touch a cent. I felt something lift. Not anger, not justice. Something smaller and more useful. Good, I said. Because I'm not done. The printer began to hum again as Eleanor reached for the next document in the stack. Eleanor placed the phone between us on the polished table, turned the volume up, and folded her hands. She didn't have to say anything. We both knew the order of calls would already be circling Carter like smoke. First came the bank, then the county assessor's office, and then our number lit his screen. He answered on the second ring, breath sharp, like he'd been pacing. "This is Carter. Mr. Langley," Eleanor said smoothly. "This is attorney Eleanor Byers, representing your mother, Marvel Langley. I'm calling regarding several transactions." What transactions? Everything was approved. I handled all her? He stopped. I could almost hear the panic tightening his throat. "Why is the assessor calling me? Why is the bank freezing our accounts?" Eleanor glanced at me, then pressed a button. "You're on speaker," she said. "Your mother is here." Silence. A long stretch of it. Then, "Mom, I'm here," I said. "What? How? We thought you were dead." "I know." He sucked in a shaky breath. I could picture him running his hand through his hair, looking for someone else to blame. "That's why I'm calling," I continued. "To correct your assumption." He let out a nervous chuckle, trying to find his footing. "Okay, so there's obviously some misunderstanding. Why are we locked out of the accounts? Why is there a freeze on the property deed? Mom, can we talk about this in person? Like family? I repeated. "You made sure we weren't." He didn't answer. Eleanor leaned forward. "Mr. Langley, you and Mrs. Langley, your wife, are required to vacate the residence within 48 hours. A formal notice will follow." "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You can't do this. That house is mine," I said. "Still mine. And you will leave it." His breathing grew uneven, anger pushing through the confusion. "Mom, listen." "I have," I said quietly. "Long enough." Eleanor ended the call before he could speak again. The room settled into stillness, and I could feel the weight of the next decision rising like a tide behind us. She arrived without an appointment. No call, no warning. Just the hollow sound of heels clicking down Eleanor's hallway and a knock that didn't wait for a response. Eleanor opened the door slowly, taking in the puffy eyes, the trembling hands, the way Simone clutched her purse like it was life support. "I need to talk to her," Simone said, breath hitching. "Please, just for a minute." "She's not here," Eleanor replied. "Not unkindly, but you can talk to me." Simone stepped inside, wiping at her eyes before the tears had fully formed. "I didn't know he'd go that far," she said, voice soft. "Carter said she was slipping. You know that we had to take over before she forgot who we were." Eleanor said nothing. "We didn't mean for it to get so dark. I thought we'd just move things into our names. Keep it in the family." Still, Eleanor stayed silent. She let the story spin out half-truths wrapped in performance, the kind of apology that circles itself without ever landing. Simone's voice wavered. "I just wanted us to have something nice." Eleanor finally moved. She reached into a drawer and placed a folded document on the desk between them. Simone looked down. "A restraining order," she asked, blinking. "For both you and Carter," Eleanor said, "effective immediately. No contact, no approach within 50 feet. The tears stopped, just like that. No sob, no sniff, just silence. "You're serious?" Eleanor nodded. "You don't understand," Simone whispered. "It was never about hurting her. You nearly earned a felony," Eleanor said calmly. "And a funeral." Simone's mouth twitched like she wanted to argue, but there was nothing left to say. She picked up her purse and walked out without another word. Eleanor waited a full minute after the door closed before opening the drawer again and pulling out the next set of papers. I stepped back into the room from the hallway where I'd been listening and nodded once. "She won't be the last to come," I said. He must have thought it was a mistake when he pulled into the driveway and saw the moving truck. Maybe a delivery. Maybe a neighbor's van parked wrong. But then he saw the uniforms. 2 men loading boxes labeled with my handwriting. He stormed to the front steps, saw the taped notice on the door court order, "Property repossession authorized." I wasn't there to see his face, but I could picture it. Confusion first, then anger, then something colder. Inside, the house was quiet. The rugs had been rolled. The shelves cleared. No more wedding portraits. No vases with faux flowers. No soft blankets thrown across the couch like Simone liked to stage. In the dining room, the long oak table was gone. Only a rectangle of sun-faded carpet remained. In the center of that space sat one thing, a folded wheelchair. Dry. Polished. Waiting. Beside it, a manila envelope. His name printed on the front in black marker. He picked it up slowly. Inside was a printed bank statement, the one with the transfers he thought I'd never find. There was a flash drive in a plastic sleeve, and one sheet of paper, handwritten. "You were wrong about everything but the money." That was all. Not a threat, not a demand, just a sentence that said more than any courtroom speech could. He sank onto the floor, envelope still open in his lap. Maybe he remembered the way he laughed when I hit the water. Maybe he thought of the neighbors, or the brunches, or the passwords he used like skeleton keys to my life. I don't know how long he sat there, but I know when the movers left, they stepped around him, careful not to disturb the silence he'd earned. Back at Eleanor's, I signed the final document reclaiming the deed. The pen felt solid in my hand. One signature mine this time, and only mine. The prosecutor called Eleanor first. I was sitting beside her in the office, sipping lukewarm tea when the phone rang. "They're not pursuing attempted murder," she said after hanging up. "Too circumstantial. No witness. No audio. Just the camera angle." I nodded. I had expected as much. In that video, it looked like I rolled forward. Not like I was pushed. But the forgery holds, she added. So does financial exploitation. And elder abuse. That was enough. Carter was charged 2 days later. 3 counts. His face in the mugshot looked tired. Not sorry. Just exposed. Simone vanished before the indictment reached her hands, left her car behind, drained what little was in her account, and disappeared like she'd rehearsed it. Eleanor wasn't surprised. She was always the one with an exit plan. She said, "I didn't attend the hearing. I didn't need to sit in a courtroom and listen to strangers argue over how gullible I had been." Eleanor went in my place. She sat in the front row, files in hand. Calm as stone. I trusted her with more than legal papers now. While she was downtown, I stayed at the guest house. I had begun folding my things into boxes again, only this time, not out of fear. I was moving 3 counties over. Somewhere quieter. Somewhere Carter had never visited. Not even as a boy. The new house didn't have lake access. No boats. No docks. That suited me just fine. I wrapped up my husband's books, one by one, packed the framed photo of our wedding day, left the damaged things behind. That afternoon, Eleanor returned with a stamped file folder and a small, tired smile. He pled not guilty, she said, but the judge approved the restraining order and frozen assets. I thanked her, then tucked the folder away with the others. It didn't matter how the trial played out. Not anymore. I had already reclaimed the most important thing, not the house, not the money, my name, and I was taking it with me. The duplex is small, pressed up near the trees with just enough space to breathe. A narrow strip of lake peeks through the reeds beyond the porch. It's not the same lake, and I'm not the same woman. I didn't decorate. I didn't need to. The walls are bare, save for sunlight in the morning. The only furniture I brought was a rocking chair, a kettle for the stove, and a thick dog bed that sits beside the door. The bed's empty for now, but maybe not forever. Most mornings, I swim. I leave the back door unlocked, walk barefoot across damp grass, and step into the cold water like it's waiting for me. There's no dock here, no rails, no sound but birds and my own breath. I swim farther than I used to, not to escape just because I can. Afterward, I wrap myself in a towel and write. I write lists, mostly passwords, account numbers, instructions Eleanor helped me draft, the names of people I trust short list and people I don't. I keep it all in a locked drawer under the sink, the keys on a chain around my neck. No one knows where I am. Not Carter, not Simone, not the neighbors back home who used to wave politely and ask nothing. Eleanor knows. That's enough. She sends mail to a P.O. box 2 towns over. We don't speak often, but her handwriting on an envelope still brings a quiet relief I don't bother naming. Today, I found something different. A feather, long, white-gray, left near the porch railing. Maybe from a goose passing through. Maybe just wind. I picked it up and turned it in my hand. Light, but solid. Soft, but sure. I smiled without meaning to. The kind of smile that lives in your chest and doesn't ask to be seen. Then I placed the feather on the sill and turned back inside. Water still drying on my skin. The kettle just starting to boil.